Hey guys, we're going to start with the next section today. We're going to begin. So last week we talked about the different parts of the circle, secant, tangent, radius, all those different pieces of a circle. So what we're going to start looking at today is we're going to start looking at things called arcs. And so we're going to begin talking about what an arc is, how an arc works, how we can find the measure of an arc, those type of things. So before we actually get into that, I just kind of want to review about what an angle is and the different parts of an angle. So we know that an angle is really just two different rays that have the same endpoint here. Now, what we call this endpoint right here is we call that the vertex. Okay, and so this point of any angle, okay, so if I have this angle right here, we call this point right here the vertex. Okay, and then we call the two rays that make the angle either the arms or the sides of the angle. Okay, and so coming down here to circles, we have two different things we're talking about here. We have a central angle, and then we have the arc. And so when we're talking about a central angle, it's a specific type of angle. Okay, so central angle means it's at the center of the circle, and so it says an angle whose vertex is the center of the circle. Right? And so if we're talking about a central angle, we're talking about an angle here. So this is an angle where the vertex of that angle is right here at the center. Okay, and so this angle right here, let's say it's like 40 degrees. That 40-degree angle right there would be called a central angle because the vertex is at the center. Okay, so we can have central angles all around the circle here. Now, we also have something called an arc. Okay, when you think about an arc, it's just a piece of the circle. So it says part of the outside of the circle. Okay, so if you're thinking about like a pizza, it's the crust of the pizza. And so if I look here, this piece from here to here, that would be called an arc. Okay, so it's an arc. It's a piece of the circle. I could have an arc from here going around the circle to here. Okay, this right here is an arc. So it's a piece of the circle. All right, and so the way that we find the measure of that arc, we're always going to label the measure of the arc as a degree. Okay, so just like we label the central angle or any angles, we label them by degrees, we're also going to label the arc by degrees. And so what we do is it says the measure of an arc is the same as the measure of its central angle. And so it stays pretty simple there, where what we're saying is if this central angle right here is 40 degrees, then this blue arc right here is also 40 degrees. Okay, and so that arc is always going to be equal to whatever this central angle is right here. The way that we name an arc is by its endpoints. Okay, so if this is blue arc right here has an endpoint A and an endpoint B, we would name this arc right here AB, and then we put this little arc over the top. Okay, and so that would label arc AB, which is this one right here. And so what we would say is the measure of arc AB equals 40 degrees. Okay, if this arc right here had its endpoint at C and an endpoint at D, we would call that arc CD. Okay, and so we always name these arcs by using their endpoints, wherever the endpoint might be. Now, we have three different types of arcs. We have a minor arc, a major arc, and a semicircle. Okay, and so I think semicircle is the easiest one. We'll get to that one last. When we think about minor arc and major arc, pretty simple. Minor meaning smaller, major meaning bigger. Okay, and so when we're doing this, so our minor arc here says part of the outside of the circle, so that's our arc, like a pizza crust, that is less than 180 degrees. So if I'm thinking about a minor arc, again, remember an arc goes endpoint to endpoint around our circle. Okay, so this would be an arc here. Let's label this AB. So that would be arc AB. And it's a minor arc because it's less than 180 degrees. So this central angle here is, let's say, 120 degrees. So the measure of this arc is let's say 120. Okay, and so that's a minor arc because it's less than 180. Opposite of that, a major arc is greater than 180 degrees. Okay, so if I go down here and I look at my circle, again, a arc goes from endpoint to endpoint. So if I look at this entire thing going around here, okay, let's call this C and D, then arc CD would be a major arc because it's larger than 180. Because if I look here, this is my diameter. That's cutting my circle in half. That's 180 degrees. So if I go past that point, that's 180 from C to D, let's just say this is about 230 degrees. That's going to be our major arc. Now, if I just call this arc CD, you don't know if I'm talking about this arc here or if I'm talking about this arc right here. And so what we do to clarify that is we are going to add in another point. Let's say right here, let's call this point E. And so actually, instead of labeling this CD, what we're going to do is we're going to label it arc CET. Okay, so when we're labeling major arcs, in order to identify which arc we are talking about, we will name with 3 points. Okay, so we'll use the 2 endpoints and we'll use a point in between them. Finally, a semicircle, just like you would think, semi meaning half. A semicircle is when we split our circle into half, so it's going to be equal to 180 degrees. So if I'm looking down here at a semicircle, it's simply going to be cutting this circle in half. So that's our diameter. So this arc here, going from this point over to here, measuring 180 degrees. Okay, and so that semicircle is always going to be equal to 180 degrees. All right, let's find some different measures of points here, of arcs. So let's find the measure of each missing angle or arc of circle P, where RT is our diameter. So it's important that they tell us that RT is the diameter here, because that tells us where the circle is split in half. All right, so first one says the measure of angle SPT. So we're looking for this angle right here. Well, we know these are a linear pair, so we can take 180 minus 110, and that tells me this angle here is 70 degrees. Measure of angle RPT. So RPT, we just talked about that. RPT is just the diameter, and so that angle is going to be 180 degrees. Now, arc RS, again, going from endpoint R to endpoint S. Remember that the arc is always equal to whatever the central angle is. So our central angle here is 110, meaning my arc is going to also be 110 degrees. Again, remember, arcs are always measured in degrees. Next one, arc RTS. Again, we have to go from R to T, so all the way around here, down to S, so down to here. So what I want to think about here is from R to T, that's a semicircle. So we know that's 180 degrees. And then from T to S, we add on another 70 there. So to find this, we're going to take the 180, which is the semicircle. We're going to add the 70 to that. and that's going to give me 250 degrees. Arc RST, so opposite here. Now we're going RST. Okay, we know that that's a semicircle. So since it's a semicircle, it's just going to be 180 degrees. All right, go ahead and pause the video, work out this example 2. Once you're done working out example 2, unpause the video and I'll have the answers there for you to check. All right, guys, here's the answers to example 2. Check your work, make sure you can get all the correct answers, and then proceed on to doing your practice for lesson number 4.